Welcome back, everyone, to Startup Security Weekly. Michael, have you heard of the new IT Pro Supervisor Portal? I don't think you have, because I think we skipped. So it allows your employer to purchase subscriptions from IT Pro TV. And, of course, you can receive 30% off by using the discount code that applies to your monthly membership for the lifetime of your active subscription. But the Supervisor Portal gives your manager, once your organization buys it, the ability to assign training modules and keep tabs on how your employees are doing with their training, which I think is great.
Oh, that's great.
Now, I've advised people, you'll like this part, right? Like, I've advised people not to yell at your employees if they're not completing the training. That's not why it exists. It exists so you can work with your employees and make sure they're getting the right training and are actually doing the training, and a lot more time for them to do training if they need it. And so I think it's a great tool and a great move for IT Pro, which is just always adding new training. So make sure everyone checks that out. I have more announcements too as well. I'm told to mention Grim and their new product, Crossbow. That's right. We did a series of videos that Grim sponsored, and great bunch of people to work with. We had a lot of fun out at the conferences. We interviewed tons of people. Those will be posting to our YouTube channel. Grim has a new product called Crossbow, which you're going to want to check out because it's very different from any other product I've ever seen come on the market, and is geared towards allowing you to test your security solutions and test your network and test your users in a very unique way. So make sure you check that out. Bryson and I had some discussions about it that we captured on film or digital media at the conference. So make sure that you check those out. It's awesome. What else we got? Domain Tools, domaintools.com/Security Weekly. Here, Tim and Kyle talk about how to use information about domains and IP addresses to protect your environment, not to be missed. Those guys are awesome. Make sure you check that out, domaintools.com/Security Weekly. I suppose I should also mention Wild West Hackin' Fest, which is happening in October. And 27th and 28th, I believe, Wild West Hackin' Fest, HACKINFest.com. All righty, Michael, what do we got in the startup articles and discussion this week?
It's a hodgepodge. It's been me trying to look at a bunch of different things and thinking about some of the journeys that I've been on, that you've been on, that people have been on. So I grabbed a couple different things. This first one I thought was really interesting, and what I thought was really neat was the way that you were just asking our guests about people and how do you get good people and how do you put that together. And they talked about the fact that the VC invest in people, and we've talked about investing in teams. So what caught my attention was this is how not to start a startup. And the guy who wrote it, Bram, said, I'm quitting. And in fact, you know what? I'm done with it. But let me tell you why. And I thought it was really kind of cool because he starts out by saying, look, I've got a master's degree, top tier business school. I've got experience in finance strategy, new business development. I've advised startups. And everybody kept saying, just do it. Just go for it. Just try to do it. And we'll be fair. Those of you that have reached out to Paul and I, my advice to you has never been just do it. It's always been understand why you want to do it. Do you want to do it yourself or not? Do you want to be part of a team or not? Do you want to get funding or not? Like, is it a lifestyle? Like, and I think what he's kind of figuring out is, yep. Now, he said, and this is, again, I'm quoting from him, all entrepreneurs seem to agree that starting a business yourself was the greatest learning experience you can get. And then in parentheses, after failing, of course. My belief on this is always extreme success and extreme failure tend to be the best teachers. It's the mediocrity that you never want to be at, right? And I appreciate that means that there's always going to be an extreme to it. Here's the bottom line that this guy gets down to. He basically said, you know what? And he quotes Paul Graham. He said, Paul Graham says you need three things: good people, make something customers actually want, spend as little money as possible. And his conclusion on this is, I'll tell you what, though, if you have the right people, you can build what customers actually want. And if you have the right people, the money, like, it all fixes itself. It comes down to people. One of the things that I looked at, and I do not know where I got this information, but I use it in all my training. Ideal group size. Paul, what do you think the ideal group size is? If you want a group, and right, so it's whether you're starting a company or you're planning a training exercise or whatever else, what do you think the ideal group size is?
I'm going to say somewhere between,
and I realize I'm putting you on the spot,
6 and 8 people.
5. The magic number is 5. Here's why. one person, right? So that has its obvious drawbacks. When you have two people, you can have a one-on-one. When you have three people, you can get in that situation where it's two-on-one. When you get four people, it could be two-on-two. Somehow, when you get to five, it doesn't polarize into 3-on-2. It doesn't polarize in that once you've got to five people, there's almost always a swing vote. Now, I learned about this, oh gosh, over a decade ago. And so what I started doing was when I design hands-on training, right? So our workshops now on value and communication, everything else, there's always a hands-on element. And to the extent I can, we try to get to groups of five. And guess what happens every single time? Someone will throw an idea out, someone else will maybe challenge it. But because there's five, nobody gets ganged up on. And it's amazing how productive that works. And so when I was reading this, I was like, oh, that totally makes sense. Now, what's also interesting about this from my perspective, and I'm curious your take on it, because you've got some of this experience in other places. I've been doing Security Catalyst largely by myself. Now, to be fair, Trisha has been my partner in it. And, as we've told people, we've got 4 kids. And so for a couple of years, she's kind of stepped aside and played more mom. And what's really exciting for me is this summer, she's come back and the kids are at a place where she can put more time into the company.
Right.
I can't tell you how freaking awesome it is to have, she's my best friend, but it's great having somebody who gets this. I mean, we met working together. We get to trade these ideas. We get to talk about this stuff. We get to play it up. Paul, I feel so excited about it. But we were talking the other day and I said, if somebody came along and it was a really perfect team for us to fit into, I'd do that in a heartbeat. So I agree with him. Like doing it by yourself, that kind of sucks. Now that said, I've got you, I've got some other good friends, and so I can kind of get some of that through surrogacy. But I think it's a really good point here. Now you've got some experience both with the podcasting side and obviously what you're doing with offensive countermeasures. What's your take on this?
Well, choosing the right people to support your business is key. Obviously, it doesn't always work out either, right? So, and those are all scars, right? That we learn from and apply moving forward. And I think you got to earn some scars in that arena to be able to choose the right people and lead properly, for your organization. So,
next one I put up. This one I kind of like, how entrepreneurs can keep their heads without losing their hearts. You and I have talked about this around being on the roller coaster. And so what this particular person was talking about is that, sometimes there's these challenges and it's isolating and you kind of feel bad about it. And, one of the things that I've enjoyed about our relationship and what we've been able to do with the show is we can talk honestly. You have good days. Then you've got days where it was a great morning and it's a completely crappy afternoon and you go to bed depressed and you're waking up at 2 a.m. and your head is thinking about crap that you don't even need time on. And it does a lot of times feel like a dirty secret because if you read enough social media, it's always fantastic and it's rainbows and unicorns and everybody's doing great.
True.
And so we're in this and we're going, whoa, hold on. Can we actually get depressed? Can we actually have these things happen to us? And the short answer is, yeah. But what's interesting is the lessons that she had 4 hard-learned lessons. 1, connect to your tribe. Personally, I hate that phrasing, but connect to your tribe. Share what's real. That's the thing I like. Share what's real. We are so afraid. We build these masks. We have these veneers, and we're conditioned to the way things are supposed to be, that it's really scary to speak your truth, whatever that is. Well, we got to knock that off. So share what's real. Protect your self-worth. I'll tell you, the one thing I don't know how I did this. I have never put my self-worth relative to the company. It's always been clear to me that the company clearly is defined by me, but I'm not the company. I don't know how you've done with that, but if you're out there today, spend time knowing who you are, right? I mean, a lot of what I do with Straight Talk it's about translating value into understanding. That could start with you. You might have to just kind of reconnect with yourself and your value. You're not defined by your role. You're not defined by the company. You're not defined by those things.
Keeping a picture of yourself in your office, is that how you reconnect with yourself? Is that a picture of you behind you?
That's what I do. Yeah, that's exactly, yeah. And I look at it every day. There's an extra sign. I even sign up for some time to talk to myself. It's great. That's well done, sir. That'll be gone by next week. That's it. It's going up to the kids' room. Let them have it. I'll tell you, this next one is especially for people in security. Bring love into everything you do. I got a friend. We talk a lot about this. We talk about the role for love, and he's talked recently to me and publicly about, when you're hurting, love more. When you're scared, love more. And I think a lot of times we're afraid to do that. But like our guest just said, they wanted to have a passion. They wanted to be connected. They wanted to be working on something together that they believed in, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And so, and I started thinking about this. Even some of the articles we share, it'll tell you about things, and this is how you do it. And I look at some of the emails I get, and I'm like, guys, I don't want to be part of your funnel, right? And we talk about that. We're really candid about that. I think that's awesome, right? Bring the love. Don't be afraid. It's funny. Memory. Back before I stepped out to start my own company, I had a guy one time from Brazil. He gave me a stamp, a love stamp. In fact, do you remember the Palm Pilots, and then they had like with the Treos?
Yeah.
I had a love stamp on the back, and he's like, man, you bring love everywhere you go. Like this is great. Like it's so much fun to be on your team. Yeah, you know what? But I'll be fair. I've lost sight of that. It's back, but I've lost sight of that. This one to me is the one to hit home. You've got to love what you're doing. You've got to love the people around you. You've got to be willing to share that with them. You're not going to get hurt for it. You're going to be better, and then have bold humility.
Well, I think just to go to that last point, Michael, what I've tried to do is focus on the positive aspects, right? I don't ignore the negative, right? But you can't focus on the negative. If people don't get the problem that you're solving the way you're solving it, take the feedback and think about it and incorporate that, but don't dwell on it. Dwell on the positive things. Dwell on the people that are your champions that are supporting you. And I've started doing that in business. I've started doing that at conferences, right? I spend time with the people that like what we're doing, that support us. I spend time with people that I want to support because it's a two-way street, right? And when you get that kind of hint or notion that those people don't support you or are criticizing you, like just, focus on that. I mean, we take criticism, right? We think about it and we incorporate that into our strategy and planning to a certain extent, but you can't dwell on it, You got to be confident in what you do and focus on the positive reinforcements as you move forward in life or in your business, right?
Well, yeah, and one of the things that I found, and I'm going to reserve the right to update this as we go forward, but I've actually learned to love the people who don't like what I'm doing. I think at times I've probably given them more status, or but let's say you share something, people are like, oh man, I love you, you're great. Okay, cool. But the people who come up with the bone to pick, now if they say, I don't like you, red doesn't look good on you, what are you doing? Yeah, okay. But
there's different levels.
They don't agree with what you're doing, but they have a reason.
Yes.
They have a reason, and they're happy to share that with you.
A good
reason.
I
love that. Or I love the people, right? And I legitimately, I love this. The people who will say, I heard everything you said, and I don't think it works, and here's why. And I love that because it forces me to go back and reconsider. Look, it's no surprise. I love consistency and ideologically consistent statements, and I kind of I love that. So I think you're right. I think there's a way. Yeah, I think there's stuff there. The last part was about the bold humility, and I thought this was really good. There's a way to minimize risk, and being bold is not the same as going out on a limb. Yeah, you've got to go in eyes wide open and look at where things are, and you can be humble about stuff, but you can still be bold. And anyway, I liked it. I thought this was really good. It's a journey. This has been a really cool year for me, and I'm loving where I'm at in the journey. And I thought that those two were useful. If you're gonna go out, do it, but definitely look for somebody to go with you, and don't lose your heart in the process. I think it's a good strategy.
Awesome.
Have you heard the phrase EBITDA?
No, just looking at that now.
You hear it a lot. You'll hear a lot of people when they're excited about their companies, especially if they're used to pitching VC or financial folks. They're happy to say our growth has been blah blah blah, our EBITDA is this, or blah blah blah, and it gets bounded, or it's popular, and it gets used a lot in sales. So you'll see somebody say well, what was their multiple on EBITDA or something to that effect. So it's the operating profit plus depreciation and amortization, the EBIT part, the EBIT. It's earnings before interest and tax, I believe.
Yes.
I don't have it right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. And so what happens then is that this is basically saying, so here's what your company is potentially worth. Now, what does that mean? So this just kind of goes into it a little bit because sometimes we look at these multiples, and so like we'll say, well, the company took in 100 million in funding and they sold for 600 million. Is that good or bad? I mean, it sounds good. It's certainly better than the undisclosed amount, and but everybody still has a job. But this is a way that you can start to take a look at how is a company earning. So that's why a lot of folks will say, like, our EBITDA growth quarter to quarter is X, or you'll hear a lot of times like, we've had 15 consecutive quarters of EBITDA growth. So what they're trying to show you is if their financials are accurate and their financial accounting acumen is strong, then then there's some cool stuff coming out of it. So this was more because I wanted people to know what to do.
Awesome.
I love the stuff coming out of Harvard. What does an aspiring founder need to know? By the way, I love this notion of being a founder. I'm enjoying talking to founders. I'm enjoying the founders and stuff that we're bringing onto the show. And so here's kind of how it starts out. Quote, Alice, an outstanding 24-year-old engineer working for a top tech company, wants to launch her own startup within the next 5 years, doesn't have a venture concept. What does she need to know? What's the best way to acquire that know-how? Should she go to graduate school or keep learning on the job? Before we get into it, if anybody's got ideas, I would love to hear what you think. I'd love to hear where you go with it. Paul and I can certainly opine on it. But they went out, they interviewed a lot of people. And it turns out 49% of the respondents had STEM undergraduate degrees. I don't want this to go long, but I'm a big believer in STEAM over STEM. Here's why. A is the arts. When you add the arts in, you get empathy. When you add empathy in, you get leadership. My belief strongly, and this can either be something we write about or however you want to do it. If you have STEM in your background, you'll always get a job. If you have STEAM, you'll be the one offering the jobs. If you've got kids at home, teach them how to code. But if they want to go dance or they want to do art or they want to do music, encourage that more. You can always learn how to code. Don't let them lose those other parts. But here's the thing. They said that no single management skill stands out above the rest. I'm going to go ahead and call bunk on that. I think if you can't communicate, you're pretty much screwed. But then they said, okay, so here's the 10 areas that we listed. Top, you got to be able to build a team, choosing co-founders, splitting equity, recruiting advisors, managing a board. They said that that's a high priority. Leadership, that's where they threw the communication in. That was the second highest. Product management was in the top, team management, and then selling, and then the rest kind of rounds itself out. I would say founding team assembly is interesting, but to be fair, from a skill perspective, I don't know. What's your thoughts, Paul?
I think if you have leadership, the team assembly is a lot easier. So they're almost kind of backwards, right? You have to have leadership skills to build a team. So those two go hand in hand. And I agree. The product management and team management is certainly some skills that you need. And I would put product management up there very high because that's really
me too.
That's defining how you're going to solve problems and who you're going to solve the problem for as you move forward. So that's super important. And I don't know. Some people would probably put sales and marketing higher. Certainly, we've seen our share of companies that didn't necessarily have the best solution, but had really good sales and marketing. We've also seen it the other way where you have the best solution, but you don't have sales and marketing and you fail. So, yeah, I mean, all these are important components. It's kind of hard to put them on a prioritized list. I'm with you, Michael. I think leadership is like the most important thing when you're starting anything, right? Whether it be you're starting a project, whether it be you're starting a business, a startup, whatever you're doing, I think leadership is important.
Yeah, and let me add just a piece to this, right? You start by leading yourself. That means then, are you elevating yourself? Are you making those investments, right? Because leadership to me is about elevating other people. It's about helping them achieve some sort of a goal. So again, as I'm reading this again, and I'm going, all right, founding team assembly, choosing co-founders, splitting equity, recruiting advisors. Folks, there's a lot of people who know how to do that. If I was going to focus on anything, to your point, I'm going to go understand leadership, and really, I don't understand project management. Like those two things are good. The team management stuff is great. it says about hiring, firing. That's a leadership issue. But setting goals, giving feedback, designing structure. I would put a lot more stuff in process, right? Because you lead people, you manage process. That's the kind of, so if you're young in your career right now, start taking that on. By the way, you don't need a title of manager. You don't need a title of leader, but be the one who goes and says, okay, let me go figure out the structure. Let me go figure out the process, and just go into it knowing that even if you do your best, you'll piss somebody off and something won't work and it'll blow up, and that's okay. That's how you learn. Get those scars now.
It doesn't necessarily have to be business either. Larry gave a fantastic technical segment on Paul Security Weekly last night, and his leadership skills, I mean, the technical stuff impressed me as well, but almost more impressive was his leadership skills. He structured his presentation. He talked about the problem. He talked about why we cared in the beginning, learning from you and us talking on these shows. Because that was the first question I asked him. He's like, I knew you were going to ask that. He's like, I got that already. He had an intern working for him. He energized that intern and had good leadership skills. And the intern built great things and was super happy with the project. And that was a huge success. I really enjoyed that segment last night. Not just for the technical aspect, but for Larry's leadership skills and what he accomplished with that project, and seeing the intern, who's a lot younger than we are, accomplish something really good and have the opportunity to present at there's a DEF CON. It's kind of like you get 2 hours and you give your talk every 15-minute kind of thing. They actually did that at DEF CON, and that's where they presented. So I thought that was cool.
No, I love that. You know what? Let me make another point too. If in years past, I've helped people try to make the jump to leadership positions, and they'll say, but I don't have any experience. I'd say, well, what do you do in life? Oh, I'm on the rescue squad. I volunteer as a firefighter. I'm part of this organization. I do this moot court thing. I mean, it doesn't have to be all about EMS or that but I've come across a number of people, and I'm like, wait, so you're a captain in the fire department? Yes. Okay. So what happens when you go to a fire? Well, I'm the incident commander. Okay, well, that's leadership, right?
Right.
Like you understand that when life and death is actually on the line and there's a structure on fire, that people count on you to keep them safe and put the fire out. They're like, oh. And then they'll say, well, so does that apply? Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of leadership. So I think these are good things. And if you're in a position today thinking one day you want to do a startup or your own business, I actually think this is a good, if you could go get a little bit of experience in each of these, you're in great shape. But by the way, your community needs people like you. And, there are folks who will mentor you on that. There are ways that you can go get some of that experience and demonstrate that experience. And you're going to set yourself up for fantastic success with it. And so I hope you do. And I hope that you tell us about it. Last piece, because it wouldn't feel like it was a complete show for us, Paul, if we didn't talk about communication at some point. This is from Marketing Props. I like their work. It's good. They definitely put out some good quality. So it's how to supercharge sales, 4 storytelling plots to eliminate buyer skepticism and mistrust. Here's why I think this matters. I've been spending a lot of time looking at how we communicate in the security industry. And I was fair with our guest. There's a growing appetite for truth. There's a growing appetite for a desire to do stuff differently. But as we all know, there's a bunch of people that are just spinning FUD and throwing stuff out there, and it's driving people crazy. And I get it. I get the overwhelm. And people say, well, how do you get through it? The answer is always the same. Ask a good question, tell a better story. And they go, oh, okay. And as you've pointed out, well, I'll tell them about the features. I'll say it's machine learning. They don't give a shit. Nobody cares. That doesn't help. No. Why are they skeptical? Why are they not willing to trust? What's holding back? Go tell that story. Tell that emotional story, bring that forward. And so what's cool is, there's different stuff, right? So it's got the challenge plot. This is going to try to get probably to what they call like that challenger sale and how do you end it. By the way, I think it's great. And it's a book I actually plan to read soon. The connection plot. So the challenge plot overcomes obstacles. This is about the way we use relationships to bridge gaps with other people. The creativity plot and the cautionary plot. You can go through these. If you like other stuff, there's like 7 basic types. If you do a search on Google, Kurt Vonnegut explains the 7 basic types of stories. They're freaking awesome. Everybody today wants to use the Pixar, right? Pixar's got 19 questions. And if you can build your story in the Pixar way, I think Pixar, by the way, is, and Lasseter in particular, is probably, if not one of the preeminent storytellers of our time. Without question. And if you look at the things that Lasseter has been involved with independent of Pixar, they're good. Like, that guy's just got a gift. But those aren't the only ones. Vonnegut also had a gift. And if you go look at him, or you go look at Hemingway, or you go look at how people talk about any of those things, here's the point I would take from this. Did you follow a plot? And if you did, how did it work? What would you put into it? And where are you uncomfortable with it? And as always, you can shoot us notes, and I'm happy to chat about it. So that was it. There wasn't a lot there. It was just more of I'm using it as a device. What are your thoughts on that, though? Have you tried that yet? Have you looked at one of those plots and tried to tell your story around that plot line?
Not some of the ones that you've mentioned. I have done it in some of my presentations based on some coaching from Jason Blanchard, and it's worked tremendously well. And I think you can incorporate that, and we've talked about it on the show in the past. You can incorporate that whether you're submitting a CFP, whether you're giving a presentation, whether you're pitching an investor, or whether you're giving a sales pitch. I think there's a lot to be learned and applied from storytelling in all of those different areas, and it's certainly something that this year I've really started to research. I didn't know about the Pixar thing and some of these other things, so I definitely want to incorporate those as well.
Yeah, and that sparked some ideas for me, so we'll do it. All right, startup security notes of interest this week. A company I'd never heard of, Juvo. It's funny. Juvo, $40 million Series B. That's some serious stuff. So they're cloud-based mobile users identity scoring. So this is we used to call it identity proofing. So if you want to get right, so it says access to your personalized financial services. Everybody now is giving out credit scores for free and all sorts of other stuff for free. Well, so the big question has always been, well, how do I know, Paul, that when you're saying you're Paul, that you're actually Paul? And what happens is they pull. There's a number of different ways to do it, but fundamentally it comes down to somebody has a source that they consider authoritative, and they piece together a lot of different pieces of information on you that, frankly, only you should know. And so therefore, there's different ways to be able to do it. The fact that they got a $40 million Series B, like
probably on something,
it feels like in the history on them, like it didn't really have a lot of detail in terms of like how all the pieces, came together. Like, I'm pulling them up on Owler. Like, so they had a $5.3 million equity round. Now they've got a $40 million Series B, all in the last year. Like, sometimes people paper stuff in different ways. I mean, like we were just talking with Obsidian. Like they said, look, we skipped the seed round, we went right to an A. We've talked recently about people doing a second A round at the same valuation. So from an equity, a 5.3 million equity jump to a Series B, like all I can say on this is I feel like there's more to the story. But to your point, yeah, they're on to something, and they definitely needed that money to scale, to expand, to integrate, to whatever. So I thought it was interesting because a lot of times we sidestep that stuff in security, and like we'll hear a common refrain is, "Oh, we got to kill the passwords." By the way, good luck, but we got to kill the passwords. But then it's somebody will like get pissed that they got pretexted or something else, and it's like, well, that's identity proofing. Identity and authentication, they go hand in hand. And so I thought that was interesting, and it was a huge freaking round. Awake Security had a chance to talk to one of the co-founders this week, and got really excited in that conversation, and have invited them onto the program. So we're going to see if we can get them on and have a conversation. They're kind of like Obsidian a little bit in terms of stealth, like coming out of stealth. Smart group of people who came together, and same thing, like using data science, machine learning. Let's go ahead and sidestep the way that they're explaining what they do. Had a great conversation with somebody else, been in the industry for over 20 years, talking about lessons learned and solving problems and really trying to understand it. But what I liked about Awake Security was talking about people. And there's some stuff there that we'll certainly get into. And when I dug into it, it kind of looks like there's two rounds, and it combines for, and I feel like it was more like $31 million when you pull it all up. But they're doing some good stuff. And again, that I thought that was kind of exciting. And then there's a company called Callsign. Callsign designs and develops digital authentication software, enables enterprises to avoid risk, protect data from threats. $35 million Series A. Now, again, that's insane in my view. And so maybe that's just how it's papered. I don't have a contact here, and I didn't have time to get more details on it. That's an ungodly size Series A. So either there's something we're missing. They may have been a spinoff, but notice the trend again. Digital authentication. They're avoiding risks. Like authentication right now is a hot space, and the reason I really wanted to put Juvo in there is because it's identity, right? Identity proofing, identity scoring, authentication, these mechanisms. I've had people propose stuff over the years, right? So we always had it was the trio, right? Something you know, something you have, something you are. I've now had people try to say, well, no, we can add to that. Now it can be location based, or now it can be, history based, or some sort of other context to it. At the moment, I'm still resistant to changing that model. That said, the discreteness to which we can grab information now, the speed with which we can apply those analytics, and the accuracy of those decisions is freaky. Like, it's exciting.
It's freaky from a privacy perspective too, as well.
Yeah.
That's what has me freaked out. Like you say, you should be the only one that knows answers to these questions about your identity, except the company that's asking you those questions knows the answers too.
Exactly.
That was kind of scary for me.
Yeah, and that leads us down. Like, so you know what? We'll reach out. Let's see if we can get somebody on to talk about this type of technology, because there are safeguards, but I don't want to misspeak. So so there's ways to be able to do it. And then in terms of startup journey, it's good. I'm going through a cycle now of simplifying, actually. Right, I've been purging and simplifying my life and learning about life in the last couple of months, and it's been great. And I feel very alive right now and really clear. Got some great clients and started offering some like high performance coaching, and that's really opening up my ideas. So I've got some stuff that we'll be able to share in the coming weeks, but for right now, it's good. And I keep writing, so I threw a couple of my links up for that. It's been a couple of weeks since we talked. How are you doing, Paul?
Good. John and I had some awesome conversations about go-to-market. I don't want to kind of spoil it because we're kind of crawling our way, back out of stealth again. But we had some awesome conversations about the go-to-market and really laser focus in the beginning when we make the product available to the market very soon now. So I'm excited. John had concerns, and based on what I've learned on the past year on this show and other resources, I was able to say, well, if we do it this way, that addresses all of your concerns. He's like, yeah, that works. That's awesome. He's like, where did you learn all that? I'm like, Michael, and other advisors. So thank you to all of our advisors. So we're excited. We're excited.
That's exciting. That is exciting. So it's good. Life is good. We're going to move with love. We got a lot of great guests coming up on the program. So it's, more and more. And for the foreseeable future, I'm going to remain a beach bum. And since I'm not in sunny Southern California, we're going to have to emphasize the bum. Like, royalty, I'll be beach bum. So it's perfect.
Awesome.
So until next week, my friend.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching to Startup Security Weekly. See everyone next time.